basically.
That is correct.
Is it? Sweet.
In his own words, he said, I would run or publish positive stories about Mr. Trump, and I would publish negative stories about his opponents. Are you shocked that the head of the National Enquirer would allegedly do this?
Noted member of the Fifth Estate, National Enquirer? Heck yes.
Well, if you're less than impressed with the shady dealings of David Pecker, you might be bummed to discover he has a Canadian connection. I will give you a bonus point if you can guess what is David Pecker's Canadian connection.
In college, he was in an improv troupe with Peter Mansbridge called Peter and Pecker.
Can I get a suggestion?
Tiny mustache, thank you.
Gynecologist.
We take you there.
The correct answer, a bit more nerve-wracking and depressing. David Pecker was on the boards of Post Media.
Oh, cool.
From 2016 to 2018.
That's great.
The truth years.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, really.
But I wouldn't worry about it. This is Canada. We have no troubles here. And that brings us to the end of another exciting Because News. This week's champion, well done, Jan Caruana. Congratulations, Jan. You have the honor of reading our credits. I'm Gavin Crawford, sending a shout out to Venice, the first city to introduce an entrance fee for tourists to fight overcrowding. And if you can't afford that fee, just wait 10 or 15 years for your own city to flood. We'll see you next time. Why? Thanks for being here, everybody. Give it up for Jan Caruana, Nico Stratus, and John Baudelaire.
Hey Canada, this is Jan Caruana, winner of Because News. Congratulations to my runners-up, Nico Stratus and John Blair. Because News is written and produced by Shannon Higgins, David Carroll, Gavin Crawford, Phil Lung, and Jess Klimowski. This week, they had help from Alice Moran. Rounding out the team, Aaron Conway, Bronwyn Page, Chris Lyons, and our recording engineer, Paul Hodge.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. The Beaches, Charlotte Cardin, William Prince, Jeremy Dutcher, July Talk, and more. CBC Music Live at Massey Hall. Now available on CBC Jam.
Thank you, Toronto!
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12 o'clock, it's 3 degrees in Winnipeg. Cloudy with a 60% chance of rain today, a high of 7. The city of Winnipeg hopes it can take a bite out of bike thefts by encouraging cyclists to register their bikes on a free app. 529 Garage is an app that will put your bike into an extensive database. Thousands of bicycles are stolen each year in Winnipeg, but only a fraction make it back to their owners. Winston Yee is the manager of licensing and bylaw enforcement.
So if you have your bike stolen, you can register right away, and it sends an alert to that bike community. So everyone who's on the app will get notified. So you have not just, 2 pairs of eyes looking for a bike, but you can have thousands of pairs of eyes looking at bikes that could be stolen out there.
Police say a registered bike will make it easier to get stolen bikes back to their rightful owner, even if it ends up in another city. You can also buy a tamper-proof sticker for your bike as a deterrent. The city says when the app was introduced in Vancouver, bike theft in that city dropped by 30%. In Montreal, an occupation at McGill University is into its 3rd day. The university is weighing what to do about it. McGill says it's tripled in size and charges many of the pro-Palestinian demonstrators aren't even students. Alison Northcott has more from the encampment.
Here on McGill's campus, protesters have erected dozens of tents behind fences covered in banners and signs. One reads, "The revolution is now." Another says, "We will not rest until you divest." Protesters are urging McGill and other universities to divest from companies with ties to Israel. Ezra Rosen is a protester with the group Independent Jewish Voices.
It helps us in the movement to have this community and to demand our universities to divest and call for Palestinian liberation.
McGill said as of this morning, the encampment had shifted and grown, and said it has seen video evidence of some people using unequivocally anti-Semitic language and intimidating behavior. But protest organizers dispute that. McGill says while it supports the right to protest, it says the encampment breaches McGill's policies and the law. So far, there's been a limited police presence here today, and the protesters say they plan to stay until their demands are met. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
In the face of recent Russian gains on the battlefield, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is reiterating that his country is in desperate need of weapons and ammunition.
Вчасна підтримка нашої армії. Сьогодні позитиву в цьому пункті я поки що не бачу. Поставки є.
That's Zelensky meeting today in Kyiv with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Stoltenberg says Ukraine will get the military assistance it needs. He says he is pressuring all the NATO countries to ensure that their announcements of military support are turned into actual deliveries as soon as possible. London drug stores across Western Canada are expected to remain closed today. As Joel Ballard reports, this follows a weekend cyber attack.
Almost 80 London drugstores from BC to Manitoba have shut down until further notice. The abrupt closure of the retail and pharmacy chain came yesterday when London Drugs says it was the victim of a cyber attack. The company says the closure is out of an abundance of caution, but it doesn't believe any customer or employee data has been impacted. London Drugs says its pharmacists are still available to support customers with urgent needs. People are asked to contact their local pharmacy to make arrangements. The company is now working with third-party experts to help contain, fix, and investigate the incident. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Coquitlam.
A long cleanup effort is underway in Oklahoma. At least 4 people were killed in a series of tornadoes over the weekend. A 4-month-old infant is confirmed among the dead. The town of Sulphur, population 5,000, reduced to rubble.
It honestly looks like somebody just dropped a bomb on this area because it's gone.
Hundreds more people were injured across the state and thousands were left without power. Tornadoes were also reported over the weekend in Nebraska and Iowa. Millions of people in the Philippines are sweltering under an intense heat wave.
Malaki pong impact sa negosyo Napakalaki.
This store owner in Manila says his business has slowed to nothing as schools and government offices are closed. With the humidity, it feels like 50 degrees in the capital. Water meter readers are about to fan out across the city starting May 1st. The City of Winnipeg says the readers will be in uniform with the City of Winnipeg logo. They'll also have a handheld device and will present photo ID. The city recommends homeowners ask for identification before allowing a meter reader into your home. The readers will only knock at front and side doors. They will not knock on back doors. If you aren't home when the meter reader comes by, they will leave a card with instructions on how to provide an accurate meter reading by phone or online. And Winnipeg Jets goaltender Connor Hellebuck has been named a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. That's the award given to the best goalie in the league. The 30-year-old Hellebuck allowed 3 or fewer goals in 50 of his 60 appearances this season. Meanwhile, the Jets face elimination from the playoffs. Winnipeg trails Colorado 3-1, heading into tomorrow's night's game and the Whiteout Street Party. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg.
Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon. Electric vehicles are certainly in the news these days. We want to hear from you. Are you thinking of buying one? Do you have one already, or do you have some concerns about them? If you do have one, how does our province's EV grid stand up? Call us. We'll open our live lines at 12:30 because that's the topic of our call-in conversation. A pet owner in Cleveland is very, very thankful. Several strangers had to work together to get her beloved pug back where it belongs. The happy ending to a mysterious disappearance later in the show. But we begin today with just how difficult the next few weeks could be for 3 Manitoba families. As you may have heard in the news this morning, the family of Mercedes Myron says they are bracing for an emotional month. The jury is expected to start hearing testimony next week. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. He is accused in the deaths of Myron and of 3 other women, Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, and an unidentified person given the name Buffalo Woman. This morning, I spoke with Cecily Hildebrand. She is the executive director of Candace House, a resource designed to help the families of victims through criminal trials. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How do you describe what Candace House offers?
So Candace House really offers a place for family survivors of homicide while they're going through the justice system and court process. So we offer a home-like place. We're located about a block away from the law courts. And what we try to do is really provide families that comfort and care while they're going through the justice system and the court process. So in the mornings, families come to Candace House. We have coffee and tea. We can smudge and pray. Staff, we work very closely together with partners in the community. We go to court together with families. And then at lunch, families come back to Candace House where we provide them with a full meal. And that's really important because we know that, families, you don't know how long breaks are going to be, and it gives families a chance to be together in a place where they feel safe, where they can cry or laugh or, just be human in those experiences. And then provide them with additional supports, whatever that might look like, practical support, trying to access different services that they might need in terms of counseling or therapy. So really just walking with families however we can to provide that wraparound support as they navigate what is an unimaginably difficult system.
Just how hard is it to go through a trial like this?
Yeah, a lot of our families talk about how, learning about the death of their loved one is the most horrific experience in their life, and going through the court process is the second. Having to sit in the room with the person who has been accused of murdering their loved one, having to hear details, having to relive what happened in the last hours of their loved one's life, is something that you become a changed person. You don't ever forget those experiences, and it's an incredibly difficult and challenging time for families.
In this particular instance, we're talking about 3 victims who are known, a 4th who isn't. There could be dozens of people involved turning to Candace House for help or assistance or just a place to be. Are you prepared to handle that many people?
We are, we are so lucky to work with such an incredible community, and we have so many partners, from MKO to Southern Chiefs to Mamaway to Ginichek, that are really walking together, and we work together closely with them, with all families who are coming through Candace House to provide support. So we are here and we are ready to do what we can for all families that have been impacted by homicide.
Knowing that something like this is coming up, it's been so well publicized, have you been preparing in advance?
We have, yes. There's been a lot of preparations. And we do that, again, with all families that are coming through to make sure that we are there for families however we can be and to meet those needs, whatever they might be. They look a little bit different every time. And so preparing in advance or, adapting as we go to make sure that families are getting the care that they need.
Does that initial contact beforehand help people feel more comfortable when they first walk in the door because they feel like they already know you?
Yeah, it's a huge part of what we do. When Candace House opened, a lot of it was just the first time we were interacting with families was when the court process was getting started, day one of trial. And we've really expanded our services in the last few years to working with families both beyond the court process, so when it comes to corrections and parole, but also earlier on. So being a place where investigators can meet with families to talk about details, or Crowns can provide updates. And so it's really providing that space and that care, that wraparound support for families from, very shortly after a homicide has occurred all the way through the process.
You mentioned that you would help connect family members with therapists or counselors if they need it. Do you have therapists or counselors on staff?
Not formally. So a lot of what we do here is informal, providing emotional and mental health care. Our partners sometimes provide that type of support, but we're often referring that part out. What our staff does is really walk alongside families to provide kind of that day-to-day practical type of support.
What have you heard from others in the community who've gone through this process before Candace House was created about the difference this might have made for them?
Yeah, I've worked in this field for a long time, and I've
How
gone to
so?
court many.
What's your background?
So I got connected with Candace House through I worked together with Wilma Dirksen. So Candace House is named after Candace Dirksen, and Wilma and Cliff Dirksen are her parents. So 15 years ago, I worked with family survivors of homicide, working together with Wilma. And that was before they had gone through their court process. And they really saw, as they went through their experience, the fact that there was no place for families to go. You're sharing bathrooms with supporters for the accused, sometimes even the accused in some cases. You're going to cafeterias and coffee shops where you're sitting next to members of the public while you're trying to cry and grieve. And there's no space for you to do that. There's no comforting place for you to go. And so they navigated through that and really saw that need. And after they went through their experience, and Wilma reached out to me and in her very Wilma way sent me a message that said, if you're bored, I might have an idea. And so her and I started working together on getting Candace House going, and here we are today.
How important do you think this will be to the healing, regardless of the outcome of the trial, to the healing of these families?
Yeah, there is... there's nothing like a loss from homicide. And I know that from what I've seen. I know that from the research. The loss of a loved one through murder is unlike anything else in terms of how it affects every part of your life, how it is with you for the rest of your life. And healing is a very long road, but I think when the community comes together, when families feel supported, in their grief, when they feel seen, when they see, community and have that place to gather and to grieve, it goes so far in being able to, walk through those experiences and integrate them into being able to, I don't want to use the word move forward, but move through that grief that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cecily Hildebrand is executive director of Candace House. She mentioned Wilma Dirksen. Wilma lost her 14-year-old daughter, Candace, to homicide in 1984. Candace's body was found in a shed in 1985.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
It is 12:16. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on your CBC Listen app or on YouTube, CBC Manitoba's YouTube page. Thanks to everyone who's watching with YouTube today and everyone who's listening everywhere else. We're going to have a great conversation this afternoon, starting at 12:30, about electric vehicles. Let's see, there's range anxiety, battery replacement costs, grid collapse, lots of things for people to worry about. We want you to weigh in. What do you think when you think about Canada moving to all electric vehicles, which the government would like to see happening in 11 years? How do we get there from here? Weigh in. We'll open the phone lines after 12:30. We are in for a rainy and maybe even, depending on where you live, a little snowy week. These are some of our dry hours, depending on where you are. It'll be scattered through the province, but I'll give you more information on that coming up at 12:30, just so you can prepare for it. Looks like things should clear out of the way, leaving us with a mix of cloud and sun for the weekend, at least in Brandon. Right now, it looks like you can look forward to a mix of sun and cloud for the weekend. That might help you get through the showers and rain you're expecting right now and that you're experiencing. Again, more details on your forecast coming up after the 12:30 news. Well, this one is one of those interviews where if you've got a device near you, you might want to grab it and go to our YouTube page just so you can see the guest of honor whose name is Nugget. Now, no offense to our human guest, but it is all about Nugget. Social media has a lot of drawbacks and it brings potential dangers, but there are also many positives that come with connecting strangers, like when it can connect people and communities around a shared goal. Perhaps a beloved animal that's gone missing. Marnie McIntosh knows just how painful a missing pet can be. Marnie's dog Nugget disappeared on Easter Sunday. Marnie joins us now on Zoom from Kleefeld. Hi, Marnie. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Janet. Thank you for having us.
And that beautiful dog on your lap, and I am biased, full disclosure, I'm a pug parent myself, is Nugget. So clearly, this story has a happy ending. Let's unfold just how you got to this happy ending. Take us to the moment when you realized she was missing.
It was like all hell broke loose pretty much when we realized she was missing. It was like the search was on. We were up and at 'em through the entire house and entire yard, and then not finding her there. That's when we proceeded to get in the vehicles and start driving down all the roads with flashlights, checking the roads and ditches at that point. And that continued actually straight on from Easter Sunday evening right through till probably Tuesday morning, till we actually took a break and grabbed our breath and started to realize we needed to do posters and get some more social media out there.
You mentioned that I mentioned that you're in Kleefeld, where you're joining us now. Can you explain to us what it's like around your home? Describe it to us.
Yeah, it's got some really heavily wooded, thick patches. The developments are built in a surrounding wooded area, along with many farmers' fields that have the thick patches of wood all along them. So it's pretty much woods and fields. The highway, the closest highway, which is Highway 52, is about 2 miles from our house.
Not anybody who lost a pet, especially near wooded areas. I see you giving her a kiss there. You love
Yes,
this
she's
dog.
looking at me.
Mommy, why am I on TV right now? I don't understand. Nugget is 9, and anybody who has had a pet for a while falls madly in love with them. Sometimes you do that on the very first day, the very first moment. Anybody would be worried, any pet owner. But what would be of special concern with Nugget?
Well, Nugget just recently it almost went fully blind. She could only see probably, if you could kind of see like that, she kind of can see it in front of her. But over here, she can't really see anything. So she's pretty much blind. She did have a stroke last year. And that we noticed that really advanced her sight, advanced the blindness. So it's been that, and she is, because of that, she is very needy, as you can see. She's kind of just like a baby, like a human baby that's about a year and a half old that you just want to carry everywhere with you.
So how did you handle it when she was gone?
Yeah, that was really tough because, like I said, because we're thinking, how could she possibly, she is a Velcro dog, so she does always stay very close to us. Even if she's by the house, she doesn't go far from us. She's, because of her sight, if she bumps into things, she's kind of like that bumper car where she bumps and then turns, bumps, turns. So we wouldn't think, because of her neediness towards being around like Mummy, that she would wander off too far, because she tends to panic. Even just to give you an example, when we let her outside to go to the bathroom, we let her out through the garage area, and as soon as she's done, she comes in and she starts barking to want to come in. She can't wait 2 seconds and sit there and wait nice. She says, let me in, let me in. So this is why we just, our minds were going, I can't, it was unexplainable to tell you how our minds were going, because of all of the factors that we had to think about with her and the area and everything that was happening all at once.
Are there any predators in the area that that's where I'd go. I'd worry about cars, and what about animals?
Yes, there is. There is a lot of coyotes around here, a lot of eagles, and a lot of hawks. There had been a sighting just in La Broquerie, which is about 20 minutes or so, maybe 25 minutes from Kleefeld, that there was a sighting of, I believe, not lynx, but cougar or something close to that as well. So, and then St. Malo's only about 25 minutes from us too, where there is also bears.
Oh, so I don't think I'd be able to sleep. Were you able to sleep?
No, I actually, I slept on the couch with the living room window on for the entire time, because I was honestly listening to hear any wild animals or anything, to hear if I could hear Nugget, because Nugget is a very, if you know a pug, you know how they make those noises. They make those funny pug noises. And when they cry and they bark, they have a certain unique bark that you could hear. So I slept every night listening, because I was going to bolt out that door if I heard one sound from a coyote or anything, to go out there and find the dog. But we did trudge every day through those heavily thick area of woods to look for her. And
so from your Velcro dog, the dog that is always with you, and that one day everybody thinks everybody else let her in, because why isn't she with everyone? So suddenly she's gone and everyone's panicking and looking. The community gets involved. You're reaching out, you're putting up posters, you're reaching into social media, and you get a phone call. Take us to the phone call.
Yeah, so this was 16 days later that, as like we said, we outpoured to the community. They were absolutely fantastic. How many people were searching. We put it up at all the local businesses here in Kleefeld. And the Kleefeld came from that on that 16th day at about, I said it was close to noon. And we saw that it said L&R Horse and Pets. And I answered it, and they said, "We think we have Nugget." And we were just actually having a major breakdown. We were just couldn't believe, like, what could possibly, somebody must have taken her. We didn't know. So we were like, we're there in 2 seconds. And we go into the store, and the staff is all there gathered around, and there's Nugget. There is our Nugget. So we were just more than overjoyed. I was just on my knees, just so thankful, and thanking everybody, and just hugging Nugget. And once Nugget actually looked into our eyes, and she just started to put her head back and howled howled, and you could tell that was, I'm so grateful it's my mom. My mom. So it was great because she was actually found on Highway 52 running frantically, and people made a roadblock and stopped traffic, and they captured her and brought her to the store.
Strangers did this.
Strangers, and there were actually people that had known, because we put up so much social media and posters, so they once they reckon, like, it's hard to tell what it could have possibly been because there's hardly any pugs out here. So people didn't recognize what kind of animal it was at first, but once they recognized it, they said that looks like the pug that's been missing. So it seems to us that she could have possibly been taken and dumped. We don't know, because we still don't understand how she could have survived in those conditions. Because when she went missing, it was still cold, remember? There was snow. So it's a miracle from up above. It's literally a miracle from up above. And everybody's thoughts and prayers and help that went into rescuing this pug.
Any words of wisdom or thanks you want to leave us with today? Wisdom for other pet owners?
Yeah, I guess, you just have to really, really, know your animal, and, anything can happen at any time.
And reach out, because the community was there for you.
Reach out and do it right away, and do it all the time. Don't just do it the one time. Remind everybody every day that your animal is missing, and just keep looking and talk to people constantly. Everybody walking everywhere. Do everything you can, and believe that you will, and they will come back to you. I believe miracles can happen now. Thank you, everybody that was involved in her rescue. And thank you, everybody on social media, for sharing this and helping bring animals back to their pet owners.
Marnie McIntosh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Janet. Have a good day.
You too. Marnie McIntosh is very grateful to the community of people who helped return 9-year-old Nugget to her home.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Gem, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
It is 12:29. Thanks for being with us here for Radio Noon. Coming up in our second half hour, we're going to have a call-in conversation with you. Please call in. Let us know what you think of electric vehicles. The Canadian government says by 2035, it wants to have every car sold in Canada be zero emission. Are we going to meet that goal? Do you think it's possible? Are you going to join in by buying one of them? Give us a call now. The live lines are open. The number to call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. If you need a toll-free line, it's 1-800-268-5483. Right now, the time is 12:30. Time for the news.
CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12:30, it's 4 degrees in Winnipeg. Cloudy today with 60% chance of rain, a high of 7. The city of Winnipeg has a new app it hopes will dramatically cut the number of bicycles stolen in the city. 529 Garage is an app to allow people to register their bikes online for free. It has a database including a number of other cities across Canada. If the stolen bike ends up in another city, it can be traced back to you. When the city of Vancouver brought in the app, it saw a 30% drop in bicycle theft. Mayor Scott Gillingham says people who register can also pay for a tamper-proof sticker for their bikes.
It basically is an identification sticker that can go on your bicycle to say, this bike has to register with 529 Garage, and so yet just, another deterrent. So anyone who's thinking of stealing the bike can look down, see the sticker, and think twice.
Winnipeg police say this new app will make it easier to return bikes to the rightful owner. The trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women began this morning, with preliminary matters before the jury is called in next week. Jeremy Skibicki has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and a 4th unidentified woman Indigenous leaders have named Buffalo Woman. Skibicki's lawyers are arguing for a judge-alone trial. And McGill University says a pro-Palestinian encampment has tripled in size since it began on Saturday. The university also says many of the participants are not students. McGill claims it has video of demonstrators using anti-Semitic language and intimidation. But the protesters are insisting their occupation is peaceful. Nonray Nafziger is a professor of Black African Studies in the Education Department at McGill. She's one of several professors supporting the students.
I spent the first night here with the students. They have been amazing. They have a democratic environment. Of course, they've had several protests that have come in from the streets on Saturday and on Sunday. And so they necessarily can't control what other people say. But here on the camp and the students that are here, they've been very clear on their demands. And I have not seen any form of anti-Semitism at all.
The protesters are demanding universities stop investing in funds connected to Israel or the war in Gaza, and they're vowing to stay put even if police try to intervene. Back in Winnipeg, the Jets goaltender Connor Hellebuyck has been named a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. That's the award given to the best goalie in the league. 30-year-old Hellebuyck allowed 3 or fewer goals in 50 of his 60 appearances this season. Meanwhile, the Jets face elimination from the playoffs. Winnipeg trails Colorado 3-1, heading into tomorrow night's game and the Whiteout Street Party. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you so much, Rosanna
You're
Hempel.
welcome.
Rosanna Hempel in our newsroom reporting the news today. I am taking care of weather today. I can tell you that we're expecting a few showers in Winnipeg, and Brandon's already experienced them. There is a mix of rain and, in some places, snow. In some places, it's mixed precipitation moving over our province. It's actually moving in over both southern corners of the province kind of at the same time, different systems. Western Manitoba, Eastern Manitoba, and Northwestern Ontario are right now getting a mix of scattered showers, scattered flurries. That's going to move in a northwesterly direction up from the borders through Dauphin, through Emerson, and the Red River Valley. Systems will dissipate by this evening, leaving us with mainly cloudy skies. The rain will persist in areas south of Dauphin a little later into the night. We could see scattered flurries overnight, and those would move in through Barons River and into Tuesday. Then they'll move up toward the Thompson area. So again, that scattered flurries moving into the province overnight and into Tuesday, first through Barons River and then up toward the Thompson area. On Tuesday afternoon, another rainy system moves into southwestern corners of the province, the communities there. It swings up from the United States, covering all of our western border communities in Manitoba by Tuesday afternoon. It'll move into the Red River Valley and Winnipeg through the early evening. At the same time, central Manitoba could see some flurries. Showers move into northwestern Ontario overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, with showers in the south and snow in the north for Wednesday. It keeps on with periods of rain, periods of snow through the rest of the week until we get to the weekend, where hopefully we'll see a mix of sun and cloud. We could still see some showers on Saturday in Winnipeg, but that's a long way off, and the forecast is bound to change. We do need some moisture, so those of us looking for sunshine will just have to wait. Right now, it's time for our call-in conversation, and our phone lines are going crazy. Apparently, people want to talk about electric vehicles. They are a talker. 4 new Honda EV manufacturing facilities, that's a new way to say facilities, are going to be built in Ontario. We just heard the huge announcement. Was it earlier this week? Late last week? Oh, yeah, it's Monday. It was late last week. $5 billion in tax dollars, in incentives to get these plants built. Canada's clean energy sector booming in this race to meet the federal mandate for all new car sales to be electric by 2035. But people have so many questions about EVs. Are they a quick fix for a cleaner future? Should you consider buying one? Call now, 204-788-3093. Wait, that's our listener line. I want you to call our live line, which is 780-0893. 780-0893. Our guest today, Francis Sims, joins us on Zoom. Thank you, Francis, for being with us.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Francis Sims is Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences, involving scientists, and technology at Humber College. So, sir, how big a deal was that new investment in EV production in Ontario?
Yeah, I think that was a huge announcement. In fact, last year, the Canadian government had done a 30% tax credit for manufacturers investing in EVs. And then I think what happened is Honda actually negotiated for a top-up, because in the 2024 budget, there was an additional 10% for those that are making EVs or making the batteries or the components that go into it, which was exactly what that announcement was, right? I think it was $15 billion. So, and it's a great announcement because Honda's been building been building Honda Civics and CRVs in Alliston, Ontario for a number of years, makes 200,000 to 300,000 Civics every year. And so it's good because hopefully that means that there's going to be more affordable EVs being made in Canada.
We've got a call coming in on our line here from Ben. Hi, Ben. Thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. What do you think about electric vehicles?
I mean, as I'm driving a hybrid right now, a co-op hybrid that I take when I need, I just look back to the days that I had a diesel Eurovan that ran on reclaimed French fry oil. And I'm wondering where, like, the EVs are great, but why are we not also looking at kind of retrofitting older vehicles to be able to cleanly burn reclaimed food waste? It burns very efficiently and everything.
What did it smell like when you were driving?
It smelled great. I got so many French fries because I was hungry every time I drove it.
Well, that's what I always imagined when I heard about that, is the smell of French fries. That grease is always so amazing. It reminds you of like the best hockey rinks you've ever been in. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about that, Francis Sims? Whatever did happen to the idea of finding alternate oils or alternate fuels?
Yeah, I think the challenge with that is maybe those options are more sustainable, but you have to transport those materials, right? So if you're in the north of Canada, you have to transfer fuel to get there to use for the cars. You have the same problem if you have some other material. It might be more sustainable, but it's not necessarily the same concept as an EV, where you can potentially get the energy from the sun or the wind and use it to charge the car. I also think that it's probably expensive, right, to retrofit those cars. I would love to have, a food waste vehicle that burns French fry oil or oil, but
it sounds ultimately
it's not necessarily practical.
Yeah, it's an ultimately very local thing. I would think that somebody would take, you'd have to develop a relationship with your oil supplier, or perhaps be a restaurant owner yourself to. But good for Ben. I mean, that was a really smart idea to have that initiative and go with it. We've got Wayne calling in. Hey, Wayne, thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Good afternoon. First off, I want to thank CBC for getting back to having a phone-in for the People's Network that we can express ourselves. I don't see the electric vehicle as being of any great use as we move ahead. First off, if we were changing our propulsion system, I would be thrilled if we had recognized that it's a limited resource, and that by using it all, we passed peak oil, which means we're denying future generations that right to have access to easy access to oil. But more importantly, we're just perpetuating a system that is destroying the planet, which is to say, it's my personal right to travel wherever I want to go at any time I want to go with my own personal transportation device. Making it electric will not change that. And in many ways, we are the most selfish people that have ever lived. If we wanted to do something useful, we would switch to rail. I can't even take a train to Calgary. To me, that's absurd. But we've decided that, we need to be selfish and have our own personal transportation instead of working as a collective to say we need to have a rail system. It's the most efficient way to move people and to transport goods around.
And these days we've even lost our, big bus systems or whatever. We could have electric buses that take people around from community to community, but we don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's this idea that it's my personal right to travel wherever I want, and I note wherever a vehicle goes, nothing grows.
Because it's on a road? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like we build roads all over the place, and it's just we are isolating ourselves from the living world. The more we move down this path, the less we associate ourselves with the living world. It's like we, in many ways, are becoming the aliens on this planet.
Wayne, I want to thank you for calling today and weighing in on that. Now, Francis, I can't imagine a change in our behaviors. I think, if we could all if we could all travel by bicycle, if we could all be outside or be close by everything. But we're such a city-oriented country now. Can you imagine us ever getting away from powered vehicles?
Yeah, no, I can't. But I think to your listener's point, taking the oil out of the ground, we're changing as we move to a more EV economy. What I like about the concept is it's really kind of driving us to think about our energy security overall in Canada, right? And no longer are we going to be getting resources, fuel, oil from other parts of the world and bringing it into Canada. What the EV challenge helps us to think about is that we need to generate that energy locally. And that energy can be used by that same community to power the vehicles that they need to move around in. So whether or not people are going to have a personal vehicle or not, I know that's a philosophical thing, but I think changing the model so that we're creating the energy that we use in the community is overall more sustainable. And that's part of the way I like to think about it.
Heston, you've reached Radio Noon. How are you? Thanks for calling.
I'm fine, thank you. I have to apologize. I did not get a chance to listen to the program before I called in, so I'm a little bit out of context.
That's okay. We want to hear what you think about electric vehicles.
I think they're fantastic. It's the best decision I've ever made. I bought a brand new vehicle, 100% electric EV SUV back in end of September last year, and I was hanging around the dealership so much that they got to know me quite a bit because I was a very special, unique type of customer. I was 100% self-employed, and I'm in the IT, software engineering, cybersecurity industry, and I was literally able to work anywhere. I could work at a Starbucks. So what I would do is I would charge for free at the dealership and use one of their desks and sit there for 2 hours charging my car, and everyone got to know me to the point where the manager came up to me and said, hey, we're having trouble selling these vehicles. What makes you so unique? And it's the best thing I've ever done. It does require some significant or impacting day-to-day lifestyle changes based on certain conditions.
Well, what I'm thinking, Heston, is you clearly, where do you live? In a city?
I live in Transcona area.
Okay. And you're able to go take your work and continue doing it for 2 hours while you charge your vehicle. Not everyone has that ability.
Exactly. Now, to get to the end of it, after an hour interview, after an hour private consultation with the manager of the dealership I bought my car from, I said, if you don't want, he was complaining that people were buying the vehicles and 30 days later they were returning them because it just wasn't what they're expecting. I said, if you don't want people to return the vehicles, they don't know what they're in for. If you buy your vehicle in the summer and you don't actually do a test drive and crank the heat to the highest level and let it run for 10 minutes, you don't get a realization of how much distance you lose. Like my vehicle at 100% charge can go about 520 kilometers without using the heat or air conditioning. As soon as it gets to below -5 or -30 in January, that drops down to 300.
Oh, it's just huge. Mm-hmm. And that is a concern. We don't, everyone in Manitoba, well, not everyone, many people in Manitoba say our climate just isn't steady enough. It's too extreme for electric vehicles.
I think that's an extreme statement because here's what I've determined is that I said to the dealer and salesman, I said, this is the question you want to ask. If someone comes in all excited about an EV, you have to ask them, do you own a home with a detached or attached garage with its own 50-amp sub-panel, and you have the ability to put your own level 2 charger in there, which is going to cost you $500 to $1,000 for the device and up to $1,000 to $2,000 for electrician work if you don't have it done to code. You have to have an insulated garage, because just like you don't want to stand using your iPhone or your Android phone out at minus 25 at the bus shack for a half an hour, doing social media, it kills the battery. I've done this personally. You want this battery to maximize the longevity of the battery. You want to keep it at above -5. And the idea is that if you don't have that, then you are basically not a candidate for electric vehicle in Manitoba, because we don't have the Electrify Canada and the distribution of the convenience of the power in the communities. Like, yeah, all the co-ops, all the shells, and they do have them, but you're paying 3 times the cost per kilowatt hour than you were if you're charging in your own garage. I mean, I drive 25,000 kilometers a year as a consultant. Now I'm not doing that anymore, but the bottom line is you work out that cost in a 2004 V6 engine I was driving around. My fuel costs were about $6,000 or $7,000 a year. That same distance in this electric vehicle is about $500 to $600.
Wow, that's a huge
on my
saving.
hydro bill.
Yeah.
It's massive, and I never have to wait in line for gas, and I'm not subjected to the changes. The
Heston,
advantage is, let me say one more thing.
Of course.
If you do have that garage with the panel, and it doesn't have to be insulated, but it's preferred. Here's the thing: every day I go home, I plug in my car. It only takes about 4 to 6 hours to charge because I never drain it to empty, of course. And every morning when I wake up, I have a full tank of gas. In the summertime, I can go 400 to 500 clicks. And in the wintertime, I can go 300 to 400, depending on my seat management. I get home, I wake up, I have another full tank of gas every day.
Thank you so much for calling, Heston, and sharing all your thoughts on that. That was great. Now, Volker Beckman is someone who's been advocating for EVs for years. But Volker, you live in Thompson.
That's right.
How big a concern is the grid that exists currently?
I am, Jed, I am a very frustrated non-EV owner. I would buy an EV tomorrow, except you can't drive it from Winnipeg to Thompson and back. Mm-hmm. Yet I live in a city that is surrounded by hydro dams and has huge deposits of nickel in the ground, which batteries need, of course. And there's no infrastructure in our province, and the Manitoba Hydro, of course, allows the fact that they are 98% sustainable energy province, but you cannot drive an EV from Winnipeg to Thompson along Highway 6, which is the primary transportation corridor to the north. So,
realistically, Francis Sims, we're in a province where things are far, far apart. We don't have there's lots of areas where we have few people living. So how can a grid like that be constructed? And how is it practical?
Yeah, so I think if I kind of framed what I think Canada's strategy is around EVs, it's number one is availability of EVs. And that's part of what these announcements lately are all about, right? You have to build more so that they're available. People aren't waiting 12 months to get an EV. The second part is affordability, right? And right now an EV in Canada is $73,000, right? So that's a huge amount of money. Some people say it's $10,000 more than a gas car. Some people say it's 20 grand. But the bottom line is when you walk into a dealership, your wallet is already tight. You're not going to want to dish out another 5, 10, 20 grand for an EV. And the third thing is accessibility. And I think that's part of what your caller is calling about. 90% of all chargers in Canada are within 5 to 10% of the border. So that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for the North. And, not only availability of charger, but it doesn't make sense to charge off a diesel generator, right? That's powering the EV charger. So I think this is the next big thing that Canada will start to focus on. It has to focus on 1 and 2, right? Because it has to make the cars that people are going to buy. But that's going to take 3 to 5 years to really come online, right? These announcements take years before they start, putting cars out. And so I think the next big thing we're going to see is an investment. Right now, the Canadian government has grants that if local communities want to put infrastructure in place to create local energy like solar or wind, the government can top up 50%. And if it's an Indigenous community, it can top up 75%. So I think this is only the beginning because it's a big problem. You can charge a level 2 charger, which is basically like your dryer, the 220 volts at home. Most homes have that and probably can can put a charger in. Canada is starting to give rebates around that. But the big problem is your home may not have enough power and the local community might not have enough power. So it's a problem. We could not do 100% EVs now. Hopefully by 2035, that'll be the case. But there's a lot of work, I think, that needs to be done there still.
John joins us now. John, thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hello. Yes, I just wanted to share my experience. We're an elderly couple. We we drive mostly in the city. And in 2018, I bought a plug-in hybrid. So we plug in, and theoretically we get 50 kilometers, practically something over 40 in the summer and closer to 25 or so in the winter. But driving in the city, we operate pretty much exclusively on electricity. For example, in 2022, I filled up on July 29th and November 18th. In 2023, I filled up in July the 2nd and December 14th. Not so good in the winter because it requires, it warms up the engine, so it uses a bit of gas every trip we make, but still very good. Someone was commenting about the heater loss. Yeah, once you turn the heater on, your mileage goes down. But again, if you're doing short trips in the city, it's really not a problem.
Again, it's all about the geography, isn't it? Thank you so much for calling. Like if you're in the city for a short drive, and especially you've got a hybrid, and you do have that gas as backup, that's one thing. But to travel from, say, Thompson to Brandon or Winnipeg, that's a trick.
One thing I would add, though, to that is I think the hybrids are a great solution in the interim. My first car that I ever bought was a 2005 Toyota Prius. Right, I drove that for 10 years, and my car I currently drive now is a 2007 Prius. So the hybrids, even though they're not 100% EV, they'll carry you through. I drive to Nova Scotia from Toronto every year to visit my parents in the hybrid. So, I fill up when I need to fill up, and those cars last, right? So there are good options that are already there that are not 100% EV, like your listener has.
Adam's got a question for you, Francis. Adam, thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, we have an EV, and it's amazing. We use it around the city. There's no issues. But we have done other trips, and we went to Morden the other day. Actually, it was the middle of winter. And we got back with, 2% left, and we're white-knuckling it because it's a wasteland for chargers out there.
It's the range anxiety. Yeah.
Well, there is a little bit of that. And there's winter and all that kind of stuff involved. But wonder if you could comment on the trajectory of range and around networks and stuff, especially for level 3 charging, because if you had a level 3 charger, it's easy to go have a snack, charge the car, and you're good to go. But they just don't exist.
Yeah. Level 3 means you can go in, get a coffee, come out 15 minutes later, and your car is ready to go.
It's so much faster.
Yeah. I think
there's
a
question about the trajectory.
Yeah. So one of the Honda announcements that they put out was an investment in EV battery design. And I think they were particularly focused on northern climates, right? Because it is a problem. It's not just a problem in Canada. It's a problem in northern Europe. It's a problem in northern China. So I think there's a lot of money and effort going into that. But the reality is if you buy a car today, it's going to potentially have problems with your battery, right? And you're not going to replace that battery. But if you were to buy a car 5 years from now, well, I would imagine that those battery concerns about how they perform in northern climates are going to, for all intents and purposes, start to go away. So it is an area of concern, and they don't have it quite figured out yet. But I know that they're working on it.
Any other questions, Adam?
No, that's great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for calling into Radio Noon. We've been telling people that if they can't join us during these call-ins, they can phone our listener line anytime when they want to weigh in on something. We're going to go to one of those listener line comments right now. Let's hear from someone who called to tell us he would never buy an electric vehicle.
Hello. My name is Michael Tricky. I would never buy an electrical vehicle. Can you imagine driving across country with that? Lineups for filling up your electrical battery? I can't imagine it. And the cost of getting all the natural ingredients out of the ground and the refining of it all, I think it's far worse than the gasoline engine. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
So, Francis, what do you say about that? Again, if we have the fast chargers and we've got enough of them, then we don't have as much of a lineup that Michael's concerned about. But what about the impact environmentally of creating these EV batteries and of creating these cars? Where does it measure in terms of using fossil fuels?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, and it kind of parallels the debate that we have around reusable bags versus single-use plastic bags out there, right? So, a lot of research says if you have a reusable bag, a canvas or cloth bag, you need to use it like 200 times to make it worthwhile. So it's kind of an apples and oranges. What I do know is that from an energy security perspective, we're bringing in fuel from outside of Canada and using it to power our lives. So that's a risk for me, right? So I understand that there's concerns around the taking of minerals from the ground and the making of batteries. But I think, we can do all that in Canada. We can withdraw those resources from our mines in Canada, and we can do it in ways that are better for the environment, more sustainable, better for people than potentially having somebody else in another country take our oil out of the ground. We have no idea what that practice is and how those people are being treated, and then import it to Canada. So I like the idea of having more control, and there's definitely enough natural resources in Canada to make these batteries ourselves.
We have folks watching us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, CBC Manitoba is what you search, and you can watch this show anytime. We just got a comment from one of our viewers there, Stephen. Stephen says he bought a used 2021 Hyundai Kona and loves it. Only charges it at home with a level 2 charger. Now, a level 2, Stephen, how much longer would that take than a level 3 to charge? To get the same sort of fill from a level 2 and a level 3. Do you have any idea what the difference is in time? Oh, Francis, I'm so sorry. I called you Stephen. Thank you.
That's
Chloe
okay.
Friesen just came into my headset and said, do you mean Francis? Stephen says he charges his car at home with a level 2 charger. Longest trip so far has been from Falcon Lake area, top up with a level 1 charger. So what's the difference in time, Francis, between charging with a level 1 to level 2 and then to level 3?
Yeah, so level 3. The fastest charge is probably 15 to 20 minutes, right? So if you go to a Petro-Canada gas station somewhere along the Trans-Canada Highway where you're lucky enough to have one, maybe it's 15 to 20 minutes to charge. The next level 2, is probably 4 to 6 hours. And then the third level is what we call our trickle charge, where you just plug it into the wall like you would, any other appliance. And that's usually like a 12-hour charge. And it's funny, I live in the city in downtown Toronto, and you'll see people with just extension cords hanging out the second floor window, going down to their car on the street, charging it with the trickle charge, which works fine if you don't have, most people have washers and dryers, so it means their house can support a level 2 charger. And if you don't, you can just charge it overnight with the regular extension cord that you have.
Francis Sims, they're playing the music, which means we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Much.
Wonderful. We'll call you again. Hopefully we'll get a chance to chat with you again. Thank you so much for sharing time with us.
Thank you.
Francis Sims, Associate Dean from Humber College. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks to the team who put this together. Tomorrow, we're hoping to talk about sleep, so join us for Radio Noon.